Hi, friends. Logan Clements here, your co host with the Better Events podcast. And this week's episode, we are looking ahead at the year of 2023 and setting some goals for ourselves. Before we set our new goals, though, Mary and I will take some time to reflect back on how we did from our 2022 goals that we actually listed out in a previous episode, episode 36, in the show notes if you want to take a listen. But before we jump into the episode, we have one call to action for you as a listener. It's that time of year, like we said, we're reflecting, we're goal setting, and we have a survey for you to fill out. The survey is probably going to take you about 5-10 minutes, but it's really important because it helps us learn about you listeners and how you listen to the podcast, what you love about it, maybe what some changes you might want to see in future episodes. We have the link in the show notes, and that will directly take you to that survey. And we really, really appreciate you taking any time you can to fill it out. And let's get into the episode.
Welcome to the Better Events Podcast. Join two event strategists, Logan Clements and Mary Davidson, who believe we can all create, host, and attend better events. In this podcast, you will learn about event strategy and actions that you can use today as an event host, planner, or manager. Hear directly from the people who are creating innovative and inspiring events today and tomorrow, and grow your business along the way. Now, let's get started, and thanks for listening to the Better Events Podcast.
Welcome back to another episode of the Better Events Podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Logan Clements, and I'm joined by fellow co-host Mary Davidson. And in this week's episode, we're talking all about goal setting for 2023. So, Mary, to kick us off, our conversation starter this week is how do you rest and recharge, like especially as we're gearing up for what looks like a very busy 2023?
I try to intentionally take time to do a handful of things. One is I have a morning routine that I love that I've talked about, and I try to stick with that. But especially around this time of year, I try to take more time off. Like I try to take as much as December off, which is really helpful. And the last thing that I have to mention has been just the biggest thing in my life this year is taking baths. So that is a great way to rest and recharge. I highly recommend it. And if you need tips, I can tell you how to make it a good experience. But like listen to some music and just relax. And it's amazing. I recommend it. There you go. That is how I rest and recharge. What about you?
Yeah, I feel like taking time off was a big one. If you listen to our episode 86, talked about lessons learned, and that was taking some time off. For me, though, it's also sometimes I recharge around people. So like hanging out, having that like personal time with friends. And I started playing kickball this year in like an adult rec league. And that has been really fun. That, again, physical activity, I feel like doesn't feel like it necessarily is a restful thing, but it really like recharges my soul. But yes, you can't beat just time off. And I feel like the juicy part is we talk about summer Fridays, which I feel like Mary, you and I sometimes have just applied to like trying to do lots of Fridays, but there's nothing as decadent as taking a weekday off or even a half day. Like it just feels for people who are in control of their own schedule, I feel like it feels extra special versus taking like a Saturday or Sunday off.
I agree. I love taking time off randomly like that. Sometimes it's hard to like get away from the fact that you should be looking at your emails. But anyway, it's a balance. Find the balance. I totally agree. Absolutely. Well, we are excited for today's topic. We are talking about goal setting for 2023 for event professionals. And this is a topic that we've talked about traditionally. So it's been an annual tradition, and we take the time, obviously to set goals for ourselves and our businesses. And we have an episode that was episode 36 last year where we do this. And if you're interested, you should listen to it and then come back and listen to this one because it's actually going to be a pretty interesting comparison, I think. And so go ahead and do that if you're interested. But if you listen to episode 86 of the podcast just a couple weeks ago, we reflected on 2022 as event professionals, and then we started to think about what we wanted in the new year and what we wanted it to be like for events and our businesses. And so this leads really well into our topic that we have today.
Yeah, I think we will first start nice and broad like we often do on the podcast. So in that goal setting, you kind of have to come from a place of inspiration. So Mary, I think my first question for you was, where do you go for inspiration, specifically looking ahead this year, but maybe just in general, like where do you go? What are your resources you use to inspire you about new things?
I'm really inspired, and Logan, I've heard you say this before actually, but inspired by other people's stories. And so I enjoy reading about how people started businesses or just cool stories about people and how they've overcome things and all of that. I'm like, that is more motivating to me than anything. And so for me, it's really inspiring to read those stories, to learn about them. And then I tried to write down lessons learned from them that I can then, learn, utilize in my life. And so I would say there's lots of places that I go for inspiration, but other people's stories is a huge one. And then another thing that I would say is really helpful to me is our colleagues in the event industry. Like, this wonderful community has been awesome. And then just going to see what other people are up to, what their dreams are, what their goals are. And I'm like, wow, maybe I can do that too. And that's the whole point of this community over competition mindset, right? And so it's pretty cool. But Logan, where do you go for inspiration?
Yeah, and you won't be surprised, listeners. A lot of things overlap between Mary and I. I think I have an Event Pros book club that I started, and Mary, you're a part of it. And I know that's a place that I love hearing how other folks are doing, what they're working on. That's like can spark new ideas. And then same with like, because it's a book club, we're reading different books that have helped kind of thinking about boundaries and creativity and processes and just things that really apply to my day-to-day work I do. And then this podcast, I feel like, is a good example. I often turn to podcasts in terms of getting business advice or just things to think about. And then my last one for inspiration is we talk about going and working on other people's events, but I do get a lot of inspiration just from being an attendee at events. Because sometimes we're just in this, event organizer, host, producer mindset, and it's sometimes helpful to be on the other side of it. So my partner, Archie, always knows when we go to an event, I often am like, it's kind of research because I'm looking for different things of like what works and what are the things that I'm reacting to, what are the things he's reacting to that other people are, to give me ideas for my event, or what are my pain points, what's bothering me is something to think about when I'm on the other side of it and actually in control of that event experience. But hopefully that started to spark something for you, listener, about where you get inspiration. Mary, I want to do this exercise first where we look back at 2022. Mary alluded to it. You can listen to episode 36. Both Mary and I just did that ahead of this episode, and it was quite fun to hear what a year ago us was thinking about. But I'll just first, I guess, list mine and then let you know how I did on those. But for me, I had done a word of the year for the first time, and my word of the year was intention. And so the idea that I wanted to like say yes to things with intention, say no to things to intention, in the sense like it aligned with what I wanted to do and not just saying yes to everything because it was work, kind of transitioning out of that 2020 mindset or 2021 mindset. I think I did a good job of that. I like to think I was more intentional. I definitely evolved as the year went on and got better with it because I had some projects in spring of this year that were definitely challenging because I think I just said yes before I was really putting this into effect. But feel by the end of the year, I felt pretty good about hitting that. And then my other one was taking time off this year, like a full-time, or taking time off in 2022, like a full-time employee. And my goal, I did put a SMART, Mary will love this because she talked about this a lot in that episode, SMART goals. So this was actually one I could measure, and it was 20 days. And Mary, get this, I took exactly 20 days off.
Whoa. Did you count it or did that just happen?
I did not have a running tally, but I have like
Okay.
in my passion planner that I sang about all the praises of in episode 86. I was circling dates. It has like a year at a glance. I circled the dates I took off. So not counting Saturdays and Sundays, but I took exactly 20 days off, excluding this, most recent kind of Christmas, New Year's holiday. So I might have netted an extra day or two. But I definitely feel like I hit it, which is great, but also I could definitely take more time off.
Yeah. Well, and I remember saying like, Logan, if you don't hit those 20 days, I'm going to help you hit them. Let's go somewhere. And we did. We went to Disneyland. So that was great. That was a great
And that was a
time.
crucial 2 days.
Yes,
of those
crucial
20.
2 days. Absolutely. And then we also were in Puerto Rico together, but I don't know if you took, that was kind of work related in a way. So
Yeah,
it was
it
a
was more of a work trip.
conference.
I didn't
Yeah.
count that
Yeah.
one. I tried to
Okay.
truly count
I
my
think
days
that's
off
fair.
as like days off. Though I
Yeah.
now do have a memory of taking a call while we were in line on a Disneyland ride. So I don't know if I
Maybe
fully
it doesn't count.
hit
Yeah.
it, but listeners, I did it. Okay. It's baby steps.
You
I'm
did
working
it.
on making days off, truly days off, but I did take
Yeah.
20. So, Mary, what were your 2022 goals?
Yeah, well, congratulations to you, first of all. That is exciting. My 2022 goals was I keep them small, short and sweet. So it was to make a certain dollar amount by the end of 2022. And that is something that I did. So that's exciting. Whoop whoop. I didn't say I would tell you what it was, but I said I would tell you if I did it or not, and I did. And I exceeded it by like 40%, which is exciting. I'm really,
That is
thrilled.
huge.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I will say that the goal I made was very attainable. I kind of did that on purpose. I'm still learning. I'm now into 2.5 years of business, but at the time it was 1.5. I'm like, I'm going to make something that I can actually reach. So maybe it wasn't the best goal to make, but I exceeded it and I'm thrilled about it. And so that was one goal. The next one was very like way more generic. It was to dream about big ideas. And I teased that I have a few big ideas and just to not shoot them down, but to let myself have the big ideas and see if something comes of it. And that has happened. I would say it has happened, and it's baby steps, like the epitome of baby steps, but they're still there and more ideas come, and it's just figuring out which ones to focus on to implement as time goes on. But that's something that I'm very motivated to do. And so it's nice to have the goal of having the mindset, I guess, if that makes sense. And so that's been fun. And then my last, actually, well, I have two more. I'm over here saying I have one. There's four. So the third one, the third one from 2022 was to pursue more speaking engagements, which we have done, I would say, Logan. And this year, honestly, you know what? I need to look back and see. I haven't really recapped this one yet, but we have had speaking engagements, and I have had speaking engagements. I've spoke at some nonprofit conferences, which has been awesome, and I hope to grow that specifically. And so I would say, yeah, we hit that, and let's continue to hit it. So that's fun. And then the fourth one was to hire a team member, which come back here in a couple weeks, and I'll let you know if that happened or not. But yes, let's just say that we are making very significant strides for that to happen. And by the time this episode releases, it probably will be official. So I'll just leave it at that because it's not yet official. And once it is, maybe we'll have that person on the podcast to come say hi real quick. And so that will be fun. So all in all, 2022 was a really, really good year. And I'm super grateful for all of it. So yeah.
Yeah, Mary over here just crushing her goals. I was relisting the podcast. I was like, check, she did that. I had no confidence that I'd hit mine.
Oh
but
my
I was
gosh.
like, I know enough about Mary. I was like, she did a lot of these.
You're
and then
so
I had to
nice.
go back and
Yeah.
actually count mine and was like, oh, I did mine as well. Okay.
Yes.
Well,
We're all
hopefully
winners.
and hopefully listeners, that inspires you, that by us speaking it into being, maybe if you don't have a podcast, I do encourage you to write these down. It is kind of fun to go back and I feel like we sometimes either forget what we'd reset at or what bars we'd set at the start of the year, or maybe you just remember all the challenges and the hard stuff and you forget all the good stuff that you've done. I've seen a good exercise where you just write down all the things you accomplished and then you can go back and be like, wow, I did all those things. So this has been fun to kind of look back, but transitioning into looking for this year for 2023 and talking about what our goals are for 2023. Mary, do you want to kick us off?
Sure. So my first caveat this year is my goals are not SMART goals at all. So that's cool. Actually, that's not true. One of them is a SMART goal and it's a financial goal. But yeah, so I have learned, okay, I'm just going to get on my soapbox for 1 second and then I'll start us off. I've learned a lot about goals this year and how I make them is like extremely motivating or demotivating for me. I have a weird relationship with goals. And so what I'm very motivated by and that I've learned lately is like setting weekly goals that in one way or another happen to impact like my big goals for the year or maybe for life. And so being able to focus in weekly is way more like attainable for my brain than thinking of an annual goal. So it's hard for me to look back at these yearly goals and like remember, I guess, what I've said. So anyway, with that in mind, I try to keep them short and not too long. And I really have changed my focus to weekly goals that align with these. So that's my little spiel. And so my first goal for this year is to streamline the event process. And I'm trying to put together systems that streamline the process for me, for my team, and for my clients. And so that means, general business operations and systems and project management, not over automating anything because I don't like that, but to create templates, lists, just things that we do in a recurring basis. Because all of 2022, I just remade everything. And I'm like, there's got to be a faster way to do this. And so that's one of my big goals for this year. What about you, Logan? Share one of your goals with us.
Well, I feel like I should skip to my goal that's very much in line with you. We're both in like the season of efficiency. So one of my goals is to use a project management document that I built for myself because I'd gotten so sick of trying to use other project management tools that are definitely meant for teams and multiple people. And I bring people in for events, but a lot of the times it's really just me. And like I needed my own tracker. And I finally just built it because, like you, Mary, I was also just rebuilding and kind of tweaking everything. And I was like, I just need a template that I can copy and then adjust it to the events. And so I took time in December to sit down and really build that out. It's still evolving. I think it'll be a living document, but setting myself up to save some time on some of those repeatable processes. And so my goal is to actually use it, use my project management doc that I just made at the end of 2022.
Honestly, great goal. How many things do we like do and then not use? Like, that's awesome. Love it. Next goal for me for this year is to build an enjoyable work environment. So as we've said, trying to build the team. And with that, something that I'm very, very aware of and I'm studying a lot about, I'm reading a lot of books about management and going back into the archives of my brain from my MBA and all those things and like trying to figure out what I want a work environment to look like and what that entails, because I've been a part of some great ones and I've been a part of some really bad ones. And so now I have the opportunity to figure out what that looks like for not just me, but for other people. And so that's a big goal I have, is to have an enjoyable work environment, which is not smart. Like, what does that mean? I'm figuring that out, but I think it's a good goal. So it's another one of mine.
Yeah, the evolution of your 2022 goals turning into 2023. Look at this growth, Mary.
Right. Thank you.
For my next one, again, I did a word in 2022 of intention, and I really liked that because similar to you, Mary, I feel like you're talking about weekly goals, but I kind of sometimes need, like, I think the theme helped me really focus and just kind of bring myself back to, again, the why behind what we're doing. And so this year I split them up. I have a work and a personal one, and my work one is cultivate, I think is my word. It feels like it builds on intention. Because to cultivate things, I think you have to be selective about what you're letting in and what you're not. You're not saying yes to, and so that's why I want to be more selective with what I spend time on. But then also have that energy and that space to go after some new work and new projects that I have on my goal list of events that I've kind of built out, especially with sports, because there's things that happen every 4 years, like the Olympics and other events that are just really big, and you need to think about them way farther in advance, like years in advance, to start to, line up those opportunities. So my word is cultivate for this year. And I hope by the time I re-listen to this at the end of 2023, that I will feel like that rings true to what I'm saying yes to. And sidebar, my personal one is health. I know a couple other event pros who are focusing on that. I really want to, as a former college athlete, I feel like I need to reconnect with my body and mentally as well, and remembering that I need my body to do all these amazing things that I do at events. I need to be able to stand for long periods of time, lift things, move around. And so I really want to get back into some of my routine that I had pre-COVID that just kind of fell by the wayside, since it's all very important to what I do.
That's awesome. I've thought about that too. And so true. And I love the word cultivate. What a good word. So great idea. Love it. My next goal is to be proactive in client work and not reactive. That's like a phrase I've been saying a lot: be proactive, not reactive. Because, and I've shared this with the lessons learned episode we had a couple weeks ago, but I found myself like things not being efficient or effective. And I was finding myself being really reactionary when clients hire you on to be proactive, essentially. And so I was like, yep, this is what needs to change. So I am trying to be proactive in the work that we're doing, not reactive. And that is a goal that I hope happens. There you go.
Great. It's great. I like that. We love being proactive and not reactive.
Mm-hmm.
My next goal is for my YouTube channel. I want to make sure that I have 150 videos. I already have over 100, which already blows my mind. But back to some of our earlier points we've made on this podcast about consistency, how key that has been here on the podcast, but my YouTube channel is now monetized, which is very exciting. And I have found consistency on YouTube pays off literally. So just as a nice, subtle kind of passive income, if I can consistently commit to creating these videos, it is something that pays off in the long run. And so I put 150 as a SMART goal because that means I have to post at least like 45 more times this year. And there's 52 weeks in a year. So I have some busy seasons coming up. And historically, that's been times when it's been really hard to stay on top of posting. But I have confidence if I batch it the way I'm thinking about batching it, I should be able to get ahead of some of these busy times a year and turn that into another channel or continuous stream of income for myself.
I have been inspired by your YouTube channel, and so one goal that I have this year is to start a YouTube for like myself, and I'm trying to decide if I want to make it for my business or like me. And so we'll see.
Oh,
Yeah. I don't know.
interesting.
Like it'll still be about events. Like I'm not gonna like
Sure.
become a vlogger. Like
Yeah,
but
it's not gonna be like Mary
how
and
do I
her
want to
cats.
brand it? Yeah. I mean, maybe don't tempt me because I would enjoy that content more than anything, probably. But
That is true. I guess my
yeah.
YouTube channel is me. It is if you
It's
search, it's like
you.
Logan
Yeah.
Clements versus Logan Strategy Group. Yeah.
I did recon on your YouTube. It is you. Yeah. Which is super cool. And so anyway, trying to figure that out. That one, it may not happen this year. So it'll be interesting in 2024 to see if that one comes to fruition, but I think it's inspiring. So I'd say that's a goal I have. And my last one, and then Logan, I'll pass it back over to you, but this is my last one for the year, is for another financial goal for my business to make a certain amount. And so once again, I'm not going to share that amount, but I'll tell you next year if I made it. I will say it's double the amount of my 2022 goal, which I just said I exceeded, but it, hopefully this one is reachable as well. So woohoo!
Yeah.
There you
I love
go.
it, Mary. Very exciting. I think my last one is like I said, I have a goal list of events. And so for me, it is to book 2 different kinds of events. One, I want to book an international event. I speak Mandarin Chinese. I used to live in Shanghai. International events were literally my jam the whole time. And then I got back into doing events here in the States. And I did a couple in a COVID bubble in 2021, but didn't have any here in 2022. And so I want to book an international event. And then I also want to book a soccer/football event. This is one with the World Cup that just came through. I know was really inspiring, and I had a couple of friends who were working that. The Women's World Cup is coming up this year, which I have my eye on to potentially try to see if I can find a role at. And it's a similar cadence to the Olympics, so just getting my foot in the door because it seems like such a fun. I was a Mia Hamm fan as a kid, so I have a personal tie that I would like to do it, and it just seems like such a fun sporting event to be a part of.
Football. I like
Football. That's how I say it. It's football, but they say it as football. I always say football in my head.
Mm-hmm. I love it. What a good goal. That's awesome. Well, I'm excited to see what this year holds for us. And then we wanted to share briefly just some goals we have for the podcast as well. We're talking about goals for 2023. And so some goals, I'll share one, Logan, maybe you can share one and we'll just do that. But we had a retreat. So let's give you context. We had a retreat. We sat down. Logan had this amazing idea where we sit down, which I think you got this idea from Passion Planner.
I'm the Passion Planner. I can't take credit for it.
Surprise. And yeah, I love what we did. We wrote down like our lifetime goals. What was it? Lifetime, 5 years, 3 months.
3 months, a year, 3 years, and lifetime.
That's what it was. And it was awesome. And I would say like we really aligned too as we wrote these down on a whiteboard and stuff like that. And it was cool to see. But so we're going to share a couple of them with you today. And so our 3-month goal was to continue to streamline our processes for the podcast. So we're trying to streamline the way we provide you content, the avenues in which it's provided, and all of those things. And so like social media, trying to streamline that more, and then just streamlining our like internal process of how we produce episodes and launch them and things like that. And all of it is to, we're busy, but we also love the podcast. And so making sure that we can continue to put out things consistently and that are quality. And so for that reason, that's our 3-month goal. It's to maintain, but also improve on our processes. So that's
lines with what we were talking about personally too, or like in our own businesses. And then our big kind of audacious goal that I like to think of for the end of this year is by the end of 2023, we would like to have launched the Better Events Conference. So, I
Mic
feel like
drop.
I feel like it shouldn't be a surprise because we're event people doing a podcast. And of course, we'd want to host an event around our podcast. But listeners, if this sounds interesting to you, it's again in its very early stages that we're looking to do. If you have any ideas of what you would want to see or what kind of offerings you would want for something like that, we are in the brainstorming phase. So it's kind of cool to put ourselves in the driver's seat of being event organizers when we're usually the executors, which is very fun, but also can be daunting that we have to come up with the whole event concept on our own.
Yeah, but also very freeing. Like we can take it wherever we want to take it and wherever you all want us to take it. So let us know. Genuinely let us know.
I think that brings us to our bonus tip.
It does. Yes, it does.
And Mary, you have our bonus tip for this week.
I do. So our bonus tip for this week is to be ready to sell yourself, which sounds interesting maybe, but I have been in a scenario recently where someone asked me like the types of events that I've done. And that's sometimes a hard question for me to answer because like, well, where and what capacity and like what kind of event, blah, blah, blah. But I would like really stumbled and it like caught me off guard and I couldn't recall half the events I'd been a part of. I just was not in the mindset to answer this question. But because of that, I know for a fact that they passed on a job to somebody else. And that's cool and fine and whatever because we're a community. But also I was like, wow, I should have been ready to sell myself at that time. And it's not just a 30-second spiel, but like do a little recon on like what events you're a part of, what you like to do, and just some like major milestones and accomplishments that you've had in your career. And so that was a hard lesson learned. So that's my bonus tip for today is be ready to sell yourself.
It's very in line for, thinking about goal setting in 2023. Great time. Thanks, Mary. And this is our reminder, as we mentioned at the top of the show, please take our survey. It could take up to, 5-10 minutes to go through all these questions, but it's really helpful for us to kind of help hear from you and understand what you're loving about the podcast, any specific feedback, and also how you listen to us. Like, are you in the gym? Are you doing chores, a hobby? Very, very helpful. But please, the link is in our show notes. And that brings us to the end of the episode. You can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn at Better Events Pod. You can email us at bettereventspod@gmail.com. We'd also love to connect with you guys directly. So if you're someone who uses LinkedIn, feel free to send out a friend request to Mary and I. You can just search our names and we'll pop up. And as always, we appreciate you for listening, and we'll be back again with you next Wednesday.